how's your year been, generally speaking?
Man, it's been great, man. I just riding the ups and downs of life. Like
Yeah.
it's never all up, it's never all down, it's never as bad as we think it is. So, I can't complain, man.
Yeah, I know we've talked a little bit off air, but, for the folks at home that don't know the whole story at the moment, tell the folks what's happening with yourself at the moment.
As far as just like
In terms of the fight announcement and, that kind of falling through.
Oh, okay, yeah. So essentially, I'll give you most of the scoop. I don't like to tell any stories that I'm not a part of, because then it's just hearsay. So I don't know that, oh, well, they did this or the promotion did that. I'm not on the back end. I don't run promotions. I fight. So I can only tell you from my perspective and what I'm dealing with, and then the communication that I've had with the promotion. I was supposed to fight for the UFL title in December 15th. That was supposed to be like the cap on the whole UFL tournament. It didn't fall through for whatever reason. I'm not 100% sure, but the show got moved to March 15th. So I don't ever stop training. I don't know what my opponents do, so that's not a concern to me. So anytime somebody's like, oh, like, like, what about your opponent? What about this? Are they this? I'm like, I don't know. I'm me. I don't know what they're doing. And I'm a martial artist. So even when I don't have a fight coming up, my job, I enjoy what I do. And I'm always looking to better, like improve some part of my skill set. So when I don't have a fight coming up, it's all about skill development. So I always tell people, when people wait longer to fight me, it's not better for them. Like, they're like, well, I'm going to be ready in a year. I'm like, in a year, I've been covering gaps that you thought were a hole in my game that will no longer be a hole in my game by the time we fight. So you'll be fighting a different version of me. Yeah. And essentially, that's what, basically, to kind of sum up what 2023 finished the year like in a recap was for me. I came off my first loss in 2022 on the main event at Icon. I had a lot of little injuries that I really needed to take care of, because I was just going from fight to fight. And that's not how you stay like healthy, is going into training camp to training camp. And I had a partially torn ACL, not ACL, LCL, partially torn LCL. Some stuff that was going on with my shoulder as far as my AC joint. I had all kinds of stuff that I kept just kind of pushing through. And I was like, bro, you got to really take care of these before you go into some of these bigger fights going against high level guys. Because one mistake, as we saw on that show, could be that's all it takes. So
that's what it took as well. It just took one mistake. And it's not like it was it's not like you were getting dominated throughout. I saw the Icon FC fight. Yeah, just one mistake and that's it.
Yeah, and like the crazy part about it is, like, the higher level you go, the less chances that you have. And the funny part about that mistake is I knew exactly where I was, where I wanted to go, and I knew that the guillotine was a possibility. I was gonna shift my body over to try and use that as kind of like a bait. I wasn't giving him my head on purpose. I put my head there and I was like, oh shit, like, you could get guillotined, but if you step to the side, you could turn this to a double. You got ground control against the cage. You can start dropping elbows. And my thought process of thinking and his action process of doing did not coincide in my favor. He acted before I moved, and he jumped the guillotine. And he's also a world-class jiu-jitsu guy, and guillotine is his move, just like the armbar is my move. So it was like, when he got there, I was holding on for dear life, and literally the stadium, like, I saw the lights just kind of like going out. And after that, I had a lot of, like, the loss wasn't the thing that like hurt me the most. I had other things going on in my life, not just physical injuries, but other stuff that I had to take care of. So I didn't take a break. I just stopped sparring. I stopped rolling, and I really started rehabbing my knee and my shoulder, and got everything back, back into a working mode for me, where I was healthy, mentally and physically. And the introduction to the UFL was like perfect, because it was like, I'm not looking to do what other fighters do. Like, you take a L and then maybe you go get like, some guys that you can beat that way. you know, you can feel better about yourself. I'm very much a baptism by fire kind of guy.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, I mean, just speaking on that, and this is something that I've messaged you about as well. I mean, you're about to fight this killer in Justin Wetzel, absolute murderer. The guy,
Yeah.
I think he was undefeated in his amateur career as well. He was no joke.
Yeah.
He's no joke at all. That unfortunately didn't go ahead. Is that a fight that you want to get?
Yeah, I want that fight, but like I'm not pushing for someone who doesn't want to fight me, and I'm not saying he doesn't want to fight me.
Yeah,
I don't know the circumstances on his, and you see fighters do this a lot of times.
of
As
course.
a fighter, I'm mature enough to know
You're
there's
super
so-
nice, man. You know, I know you're nice. Yeah, you're not gonna try
Yeah,
and
well,
slip.
well, I tell people, I told someone the other day, I said I used to say this in high school, and it still lives true to this day. Depending on how you know me, I'm either the meanest nice person you'll ever know or the nicest mean person you'll ever know. Like, I'm nice, but I'm also like experienced in the game. Who's to say that he didn't get injured in the camp? He has personal things going on. I don't know. My job is to come up here and bash nobody. I tell people I'm a good enough salesman that and it might sound egotistical, but fighting is a very egotistical sport. I'm selling you me. I can give a fuck on who the other opponent is because he doesn't matter. Whoever they put in front of me, y'all coming to see the Moon Show. That's how it is. And it sounds like that, but that's the world of fighting, and that's the world that we live in. I don't have to tear my opponent down in order to lift me up. The fact that he has a great record and he's a murderer and he just stopped 2 other murderers in his division, and I stopped 2 murderers in my division is like good enough for the fight. So the fact that he would probably be my toughest test to this date is what like hurts my feelings more than the fact that we won't be having this fight. So like my feelings is hurt, but I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm cry and spill milk, or are we gonna move on to whoever the next opponent is? Because like it's a weird thing for you to have a specific game plan for somebody you've been training for 4 or 5 months, 6 months now, and then now it's not them. So it's like, okay, now I have to recalibrate who my new opponent is and add a new game plan because he's not going to have the same skill set as Justin Wetzel. And I was really excited about that skill set just because he's a murderer.
Yeah, man,
he's a savage. And I was just
like, he's been following us for a while, actually, and we've been following each other. And I think I was in talks of having him on the show. We'll probably have him on the show at some point in the future. But guy is an absolute stud. There's no doubt about it. I think he trains out of Colorado as well.
Yeah, he trains. So like Corey Sandhagen was in his corner on that fight, and I thought it was like so fitting. Like he has Corey Sandhagen in his corner. I have Cole Miller in my corner. We have 2 good camps. Like he's like I think Easton BJJ over there, like with Corey Sandhagen and where all those guys out of Colorado, like Justin Gate. I actually met Corey Sandhagen. That was the first time I ever met Corey Sandhagen. Was 2021. I went to Colorado after a fight in April, and I don't go anywhere that I can't train. So I ended up going to the Easton BJJ Training Center, training. This is like 2 weeks after a fight. So I had torn my groin. I could barely even walk on it for 2 weeks, but I'm like, man, I still want to get some training in. And Justin Gaethje invited me into the pro sparring. And I was like a little kid. I was so hurt because I was like, man, I just had a fight 2 weeks ago. And I was like, I have a torn groin. I literally just was basically drilling with the jiu-jitsu. Then Corey Sandhagen walks in, then Curtis Blades walks in, and I'm just like, bro, what the hell? Like, so it was awesome. So I met Corey Sandhagen before, but when I met him again at the UFL 3, where me and Justin Wetzel both fought on the same card, he just had surgery because he had that fight against Rob Font?
Rob Font, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and he tore his tricep or something like that and fucked his elbow up. So it was very to know that like Wetzel's pedigree comes from that was like more exciting. Like, and it was just like, I'm going back and forth with my coaches and we're like, yo, this is like a full team matchup. This isn't just us. This is like the teams, the ATT, Cole Miller pedigree, and you got the Easton Easton Training Center pedigree. And like, I don't like talking about it. You see how excited I'm getting.
What a trio though. You said for yourself, you got Curtis Blades, Justin Gaethje, and Corey Sandhagen. I mean,
that was just a small amount. It was a lot more guys.
Exactly. And we've had other people. I think we've had Lance on. on the show as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's also with them, another killer. But those three guys alone, have you noticed something? No cardio issues whatsoever.
Oh no, they all in. So look, that was my next thing. He trains out of Denver. This fight was going to be 5-5, and I'm like, this, that right there,
yeah.
the championship, like, it separates the good from the great. Like, look, the UFL had this great vision, right? And I know what the vision is completely on both ends now because I've spoken with everybody in the UFL. Shout out to the UFL, Harrison Rogers.
Sorry, can you try that one more time, Amun? Just that UFL is, I think you just coughed very. I said I wanted to give a shout out to the UFL because I got to be a part of their vision, but I also got to see their vision and how they wanted to do things for like their launch and where they wanted to go, where they want to go, not wanted, but I wanted to give a shout out to the UFL for Harrison Rogers, Rampage Jackson, Frank Mir, like the way these guys are like putting everything into their promotion. It just felt like I was fighting for the biggest promotion in the world every time I went. And it really was, yeah. I mean,
it was the biggest stage I've ever been on, and it was just the star power was ridiculous. Not just to mention the star power, like from the teams that are fighting, like in the Arizona, you have the lab with Ben Henderson and their whole squad, and there's just so much talent out there. But it's like the star power in the building. I'm looking around, and freaking Jared Cannonier's walking around, Ben Henderson's walking around. I look over there, I'm like, that's Criss Angel.
Bro, Criss Angel's everywhere. Like, what? Why is it? He's in karate combat. He's just a huge combat sports fan. He must be. I think there was an interview with Tim and Ross Levine, karate champion, and they were talking about how Criss Angel was just pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. So
is that a thing now? Like just Criss Angel being a massive combat sports enthusiast.
Yeah. So I had this actually. I have a video on my phone of us having like just a regular conversation. So this was, I'll fast forward. I saw him the first time ever at UFL 1, and then our podcast. I'm doing all this. I'm listening to Frank Mir, and like apparently, like Frank Mir does like privates with him, and he's like, "Oh, I just love MMA, blah blah blah." He loves all combat sports and all this stuff. He has like martial arts tattoos on him and everything. I didn't know this, but I started listening to the stuff. Fast forward to UFL 3, I win, and remind me to tell you a funny story about Rampage in UFL 1. All right, about some food. He deboed for me, but I go to UFL 3, and after the show was over, they have like a little after party or whatever, and I'm like, man, my plane leaves early the next day, but it's like 1 a.m. I'm like, man, let me at least stop by, say what's up to everyone, so Rampage is there, Frank Mir is there, everybody from UFL is there, Criss Angel's there. We're just having like a regular old conversation for like a good 20-30 minutes. My cousin pops out the phone because my cousin was with me, and he's like recording the conversation. I don't even know because we're just going back and forth. But he's just telling me all about like, he had a martial artist upbringing, how he's training with Frank Mir. So I think he's out in Vegas. So like, I think Frank Mir has a house out in Vegas, or he goes to Vegas recently, whatever the situation is. But Frank Mir trains him. He's like, yeah, I'm doing my jiu-jitsu. I'm just a white belt, but like I've been training for almost a year, over a year. I did some striking. I'm doing this, and he's at like all the events, and he's legit just. He's like, bro, I love martial arts and stuff like that. And then I got to talking with Frank Mir because Frank Mir was there, and I was like, man, I was this close from landing that flying knee. And he was like, yeah, that's exactly how we teach, like the switch knee is like lead with your lead and then hit your switch. And so we started getting into it, and then Criss Angel starts talking, and I was just like, yo, if you would have told me at like 13, 14 years old where I'm watching Criss Angel on TV, I'll be having a conversation with him and Frank Mir that didn't include magic. It was all about martial arts.
I would never expect it, man. I would never expect it. We need to try and have him on the podcast one day. Probably just talk about random general fight stuff.
Oh man, yeah. That's always interesting. Like when you meet these people, all you know is what you know about them is what like the media puts out. But then when you get to kind of like have a regular conversation, there's no cameras around. He's like, man, like they're really interested.
Yeah,
like
most people are nice people, let's be honest. You know, it's this. I think we've got a misconception that, like, you know, there's people out there that are just nasty. Most people are just have this conception that people are nasty, but most people are nice, aren't they? You know, and when you meet them in
the majority.
The majority. There's a few.
The majority. I like to like separate people online from people in person, because you can meet someone online, or you have like this idea of what they might be like as just a glimpse, and it's the tip of the iceberg. That's what people show you, and normally what people show you is a part of who they are, but it's not all of who they are. You know, so when you start to talk with people, you realize most people don't want a problem. Most people would like to be cordial, be nice, have some sort of kind of peacefulness around them, enjoy the moment. Like, you know, it's not like everybody's not out there like a bad person or this or that. Yeah. Say, oh, don't meet your idols, because, you know, they'll whatever, you know, they'll be assholes, they'll be this, they'll be that. It's like most people aren't. You have some people who are. It's like most of the time y'all just don't click. It doesn't make them an asshole because y'all don't click, you know?
No, of course. Yeah. So obviously with the UFL, that's kind of put on hold a little bit. Is the promotion even putting anything out there? Because I've been trying to look at stuff that releasing. I'm not too sure what's going on. Is it?
Yeah. So we were supposed to fight March 15th, but apparently that got scrapped because my opponent's not able to fight. So there's a lot of movement.
So it's just on hold. It's not like it's canceled completely then.
Well, I guess that show, like I said, I can't speak for things that I don't know.
Okay.
What I've been informed of is that there will be a show in April, not in Arizona, but from what I've heard is it's going to be in California, which I'm excited about. So in California, and that will be where the finals would be taking place. And all I can speak on is what I've heard, and that's what I've heard.
Of course. No, I don't want you to. Yeah, I don't want you to speculate on them.
Yeah, I don't.
I know.
Speculating. I'm like, I'm putting out false information. People get their hopes up. It's like,
you could have just been, you know what you could have been? You could have just been that nasty fire, or, you know, that heel type of characters that, come on, they're just scared because I'm going to knock every single one of them out. So, you could have started talking shit about your opponent, but
I could do that, and that'll catch a little bit of attention. But it'll be even better if I just like smile and be like, but I'm still going to knock everybody the fuck out.
Do you ever want a rivalry in MMA? Like, when I mean rivalry, so like a Conor McGregor, Habib type situation, not that big, but would you ever want that? Because some fighters that I've spoken to, they go, oh, well, I think a rivalry would be great for my career. It would really elevate my profile in general. But I mean, if it happens, but you can't force it, right?
Yeah, but look at what you just said. You said those fighters said like a rivalry that they're looking forward to. It's the things they'll get from it.
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself, if you want a rivalry to benefit just so it can boost your career, then you really don't want a rivalry. You want your career to go up.
Yeah, that's true.
So for me, I'm like, if there's a rival out there, like, yeah, sure. It'll level me up as a martial artist. It'll make it fun and like everybody would want to put their eyes in. And I don't mean to keep going back to this, but that's what this thing with me and Justin Wetzel, basically, it wasn't a rivalry, but there was so many like if-then situations. Like, look, I'm Amun Cosme. My character is Moon, right? Then you got this guy who's got his Saiyan character. You got two characters about to fight each other. And that's what a rivalry is. When there's a storyline behind it, it makes it interesting. The Conor Khabib, oh, the bust through the window, the this, oh, like send location. Like, when you have these one-liners and there's a tension, that's what builds a rivalry. Because fighters don't like each other all the time, but they don't get a rivalry off of it. They just like, oh, it's a fight, they're gonna kill each other, whatever. But when there's a story, Alex Pereira and Izzy. Alex Pereira was sitting at a pub drinking beer, and Izzy's doing an interview talking about he's probably sitting at a bar drinking beer, wondering like, no one's knowing about this guy. I'm the one that's this, he's getting famous off of me, and he goes,
okay,
that's it. That's it. I now have a mission. And then for the next 3 years, he's sitting in the crowd. He's at every Izzy fight. The camera's man. It's like you have this buildup, and that was probably the biggest part of this fight not happening for me was there were no politics involved. You took 8 of the best bantamweights and you put them all in a tournament. And the 2 best showed who they were because none of my fights went to decision. None of his fights went to decision. Yeah. I defeated my bracket. He defeated his bracket. Now you got the Moon Show and you got the Super Saiyan, right? He comes out. He's not saying much. He's got the little like serious look, and I'm over here smiling. And you could feel the tension when like the stare. Like as soon as it was over, it's like, all right, it's time for y'all to stare down. You see Rampage in the back going, like it was. I believe it was the fight that every UFL or fight fan that has followed the UFL from UFL 1 all the way to that 3rd one, they deserved. They needed that. Like they were entitled to seeing us fight each other because they just followed my 1st round knockout, my 2nd round TKO, his 1st round TKO, his 3rd round TKO. He bloodied that dude to death with his ground and pound, and then his 1st round finish. So it's like, bro, these dudes spent about 10 minutes each in the cage, or maybe 16 minutes and 12 minutes total in the cage, and they both came out with 2 finishes against other high-level guys. These are not like, no one were... My guy was 11-3.
You know what this reminds me of? Sorry to interrupt you, but you know what this reminds me of, before I forget, yeah? So this reminds me of the bantamweight version of Khamzat Chimaev and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Do you know what I mean? It's like just 2 absolute murderous dogs just going at it.
Yeah. And that's what it was supposed to
have that. Like, how long are you still not over it?
No, I'm over it because I'm like, I've had enough disappointment in the fight game to like not hold on to that. I just want to fight, bro. Like I just want to fight. I'm like, I fought in February, then I fought in August, and then I've just been waiting. You know, like waiting for me doesn't mean not training. I'm still training. I'm still filling in gaps. I'm still, you know, I have other teammates that are fighting, so I'm their main training partners. So it's just like. I literally live. I've told you, hey, when you message me, I said, hey man, I'm just leaving the gym. I do private training on the weekends. So even though I'm not training, I'm still like teaching. So it's just it's a part of what I do, and that's why I said like for those who wait, it's not beneficial to wait. And I don't really do the whole this guy was scared. I let the media and the fans do all that shit. I'm like, the dude is 9-2, and he just crushed 9 other people. Like the fact that he might be like scared of me, we're always aware and cautious and nervous, but like I'm not trying to talk no fear into this dude. I just want to see what it's like when we're like face to face, eye to eye. I want to feel that tension, and I want to get in that ring. I want that first exchange to happen and the real version of us to show up, because that's what it is. Like you can put on whatever hard face, whatever mask you like to put on at the stare down, at the weigh-ins, at all this, and you see me. My goal is to be whatever I am in that moment. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm sad, I'm sad. But I fight better when I'm in a good state. I'm like, I don't have to feel upset to flick that trigger, you know? And like, there's not much you can say or do to me that will get me that way.
What can? That's an interesting question. What can be like the trigger word or sentence? I mean, I don't want to give your opponent's ammo, so you probably should not.
No, they can, like, I don't think there's nothing that, all right, so this is how I look at it, all right? So when I had a horrible temper growing up, and I was a kid that you could just say something to, and if I felt threatened, and boom, it was a fight. So like, you're stupid, you're this, what? Why am I like, lose your temper, right? But I've grown so much from that. I'm like, there's nothing really you can say, because at the end of the day, we're gonna fight. Like,
yeah.
If you want to get disrespectful, you want to talk about my family, you want to do all that stuff, that might be a little extra like incentive when I'm dropping bows to try and like, you see when I get on top and I ground and pound people.
Oh man, it's like what's his name? I can't remember his name now. Halil Roundtree. You know how he beats people up as if people owe him money? That's how you beat people up. I'm telling you, you beat people up like as if they owe you money, and you're just smiling after. I'm like, this guy is
yeah, it's a little like
sure.
So my team, my team, I had 2 fights that were very big learn, and this is what I'm saying about filling in the gaps. I had 2 fights where I took my opponent down. I got to the back. I didn't get the finish with the submission. It was like, yo, you're like so hungry for the submission. You're missing the opportunity to do damage. The submissions come easy once you start doing damage. Then I had one fight where I took the dude down. He had significant pretty significant jiu-jitsu, and I'm ground and pounding, but I'm not really doing damage. I'm kind of just staying active. And the goal was to try and finish. Obviously, it's always to try and finish. But I was being active and I was doing damage, but not like real significant damage. And after those 2 fights, we went back to the drawing board. We was like, bro, there's no way you had 2 fights that went the distance, bro. You had 2 fights in your pro career that went the distance. And you took them to the ground and you had them in positions where you should just be obliterating people. And it's like, yeah, they have a say in it, but you have the ultimate say. So we went back and we worked wall work, and Cole Miller is a fucking genius. He said, hey, the way that there's a science to striking, like you always hear the science of boxing or the science of Muay Thai, he says, there's a science to ground and pound. You think because you're on top and you're punching that like you're doing damage. He says, it's not damage. Like you're hitting them, but like hitting someone and doing damage is almost 2 different things. So we went back, we looked at some things, and then we have ground and pound classes, the correct way to ground and pound, how to get your hips and your shoulders. And then it's like, hey, like this is not a get on top and then punch a guy, because you're talking about 20-time UFC vet Cole Miller, right? He hasn't fought in 7 or 8 years, and he had the number 1 spot, was tied for the number 1 spot with submission victories in the UFC.
Yeah, I remember, man.
And he was and he wasn't fighting. And then Charles Oliveira like tied him for like 2 years and then finally passed him after like him not fighting for 7 years. It was like, good. If you get somebody with good jiu-jitsu from the bottom and you're just throwing without like just trying to stay at, you're gonna get fucking caught. And when you do, you'll feel stupid because you had the top position and you got caught. So how do we're not always trying to work to pass, but we're not always trying to just sit there and ground and pound. He said there's a science to it. And he's an ATT OG. So he brought in Thiago Alves for striking seminar. He brought in Dean Thomas. He brought in Mike Brown. He brought in Adriano Moraes. He brought in Thiago Moises. And then he brought in Thug Jitsu. Eve Edwards. He's bringing these guys in and he's showing us like from the root. He's bringing these guys in and they're just dropping these bombs, and then he'll record it and then we'll go back and we'll watch our sessions and this. You see this right here. So he's the mastermind. All right. And it's like we have that level. And then I have my head coach, Lathan Lawson, is there for every training. He's like, hey, no, get your hips up, do this. It's like, hey, we're gonna ground and pound, we're gonna make it count. So we have like a systematic way to do damage, not just go out there and start throwing. So from my first 3 MMA fights, the first one I finished with a submission, and I was doing heavy ground and pound, but I had a real dominant position, and we knew the guy wasn't that good on the ground, so we knew that was an easier path to victory. He was a Muay Thai based guy, so we knew we had to get it down for less damage, right? But the 2 fights after that, where I fought Alexander Sheikh and I fought Mike Wilson, were the 2 fights that I had go to distance, where I took him to the ground and I had dominant positions, wasn't finished it. If you look at ground and pound from there to my next couple fights, my next fight after the Sheikh fight, where I fought that killer from Russia, from Kyrgyzstan, Alexei Fedosiev out of Shevchenko. Dude, when I got on top, I was like, I want to put my elbow to the mat and his head is just in the way. And that was the thought process. And then we went back and all the stuff that we fixed was like, okay, this is how we do it from this position. This is how we do it from that position. And then anytime I got ground and pound after that, you see, it was just like, it looked different. It looked different. It wasn't just like, a pop. I might do a pop.
You were giving thudding shots there. It was thudding.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I would rather have, and that's what Cole Miller kept telling me. He said, hey, bro, you get one good one in the right spot they're going to do exactly what you want them to do. So it doesn't have to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So, you know, we go through a systematic of damage, control, until you can get to an ultimate control position. Then you can let it go. So that's kind of like our step ladder. It's like,
so it's almost like you damage them and then they give up a bit more control because they're focused on the damage. Yeah, they're protecting their face. Yeah, and again, it's just a vicious cycle, isn't it?
It's a
full mount, or you take that back.
Yeah, look at everybody who has good ground and pound. Obviously, we're gonna go to like Khabib. The reason why he could do so much damage with his fist is because he knows how to grapple with his legs. So he always talks about the strength in his legs are what's more important, because he's always pinching with his knees. So anytime he releases any kind of like tension, that's the area you have to go. So if I know you're going this way, I know a hand is going to go out. I know a knee is going to go down. I know what this, and then I can move to the next control position. We get so excited when we get on top and ground and pound sometimes that people are like, oh, here it is. And you're like, guys at my weight class, how many guys in 135 weight class do good ground and pound? You can't really name one. They can finish, guys, but I'm talking about get on top.
I'm trying to think now. I mean, you know what? I can't think of too many.
You can't.
No, that's crazy. What the hell?
So the thing is, the guys at our level, think about this. As high level as Henry Cejudo's wrestling is, when he gets down there, have you seen him like just crush people on ground and pound?
He's, to be fair, he did finish Marlon Moraes with ground and pound, which was pretty vicious. But
okay, all right. So this is what I'm saying. If you and I are fighting, and you catch me, or
that's not gonna last very long, man. Let's be honest.
Let's just paint the picture. You catch me or damage me. Anytime you damage someone, it's easier to finish ground and pound because they're damaged, they're compromised, right? Yeah, everything is easier when you're damaged. Yeah. So I'm not saying 135ers don't finish with ground and pound. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we don't have a person in our head that says, if he takes this person to the ground, if they're fresh or not fresh in the fight, not because they got hit. I'm talking if he takes them to the ground, he's going to do so much damage with ground and pound, it's over.
Oh, I see. So it's either kind of getting to a bad position or submission.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, like Aljamain Sterling, for example. I don't see him many people with ground and pound. He finished TJ Dillashaw, but that's only because he had his leg. Do you know what I mean? Or he had
exactly. Whatever. So if you look at it, the first weight class where that is like a huge threat for me, I look at 155 and up.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. You can name killers in 155. You're like, if they take you down, you might not get back up. And if you can't get back up, they start dropping him. And then you think of 170. You say, okay, your Shavkats, your Shemayevs, your this. Then you go to 185. You're like, okay, this person's a good wrestler. If they take you down, your Usmans, you're like, all right, because weight does play a factor. And the biggest thing about bantamweight is when I talked to Adriano Moraes, one of the only people who beat Mighty Mouse, he was like, hey, look, for flyweight and bantamweight, the most important thing is that you're fast, you have a gas tank, and he said something else. But we were out eating dinner, and it was like me, him, Cole, and Thiago Moises, and it's like, okay, so he's like, these are more important. He's like, because when you get a bantamweight down or a flyweight down, the second there's any space, what's happening? Right back up. They're going to scramble right back up. As soon as their butt hits, they right back up. So it's like, you don't see a lot of people control bantamweights bantamweights control each other on the ground because we are a lighter weight class. We're more explosive. And the second that you give somebody an out, like, they're not just taking it. They're 1,000 miles an hour this way. And the second that there's an opening, they'll come back the other way. So there's like, think about like the Chad Mendes and Jose Aldo fights. Like anytime Mendes got Jose Aldo to the ground, his hips were like boom, boom, moving, and he would find a way to get back up. And it's like, dude, Chad Mendes style of wrestling is way up there. And Jose Aldo's hips are like this. So he's just making the space to explode up. And that's the 45 division. So like, this is kind of like the gap that when we started talking like with Cole and Lathan and Bubby, he was like, yeah, man, when we get people down, we got to do damage. We got to control them first. And then we'll do a damaging shot or two. And then that will open up the space. And if you're competent in grappling, you know that the right way they should go. So we should be basically creating a funnel for them to get into worse and worse and worse positions. And if you look at the second that fight goes to the ground in the UFL 3, the second it goes to the ground, it goes, I had an opportunity to go to mount, but I didn't. I went to a top half guard, and you can hit, and Frank Mir is a genius.
He really is.
Dude,
I'm not just underrated as a commentator, honestly. I think he should be in the top 10 of commentators, and he's not even spoken about nowhere near enough.
I'm not even talking about just MMA knowledge. He just like, you just got to talk with him. I'm like, God, this guy is
clever, dude.
And like, it's funny because every interview I have with Frank Mir after the fight, my coach is like, yo, it's crazy to see how in tune you are to the fight. Because if you listen to the commentary and then you listen to what you say after the fight, you're saying everything that Frank Mir said were possibilities or things that you should be doing. And he was like, yeah, like, we never called for you to switch to southpaw in that knockout that you got. But when you were backed against the cage, I realized like, I'm not just going to be evading and countering the whole fight, but I'll feel more comfortable if I put my power hand forward to see how he reacts to another southpaw, because most southpaws fight orthodox fighters. I can fight out of both stances. So I switched without him recognizing. And I actually did something in the first 10 seconds of the fight that I told my coach I was going to do to see if he even would recognize if I was in southpaw. And when I did it, he shuffled his feet, and I was like, he doesn't really fight. So he's not really respecting me being a southpaw. Then I switched right back. I was like, all right, cool. I have a better advantage in my orthodox because I fight out of there more. And then when he just kept pressure, I said, okay, I'm going to go to southpaw because I want my lead hand forward. That way I can start having some lead hand action. I hit him with one jab, and off of that jab, I was like, oh, okay. He's not recognizing that I'm southpaw, and now the distance game is completely different. And my lead hand's forward. I said, cool. He parried. I said, okay, he's late. I'm a check hook. Boom. Caught him with the check hook. He wobbles. I notice it. I go forward. Frank Mir comes in. He's like, so I saw you went to southpaw. Were you doing that? So he starts saying everything. And I'm like telling him what I was thinking. And then my coach came to me. Lathan was like, bro, like, I know you was in tune, but like you were processing at a very like fast rate. And I said, it wasn't necessarily me thinking of everything. I had one thought. He reacted, and I already knew where to go. So it's like being aware of these tiny little things, and then hearing Frank Mir literally say everything that I was thinking. I was like, yo, this is crazy.
What's happening as well, which is
genius.
Crazy. Like how? Yeah. So it is very impressive because when you think about it, you're watching the information happen in front of you, or you're watching whatever happens in front of you. You're processing it, and you're basically just extrapolating and just kind of verbalizing it, all within seconds. Like that's a fast brain.
Well, the thing is, to be honest, like I'm giving you a slowed down version of it after the fact. Yeah. In that time frame, you're not thinking of all the possible outcomes. That's what your training camp is for. And this is what I'm saying. This is so like you have to be in your head, but not too far in your head.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, you'd overanalyze. I'm assuming, right?
Now you're thinking too much, and now you're not in the fight. It should be. Yeah. You should be taking action in the fight. You shouldn't be thinking and then reacting because now you're 2 steps behind. So I was like, okay, when we lined up, when we faced off, he went orthodox and I went southpaw. So I thought it was funny. I said, I was trying to fuck with his head. Like, I'm going to go southpaw to see like what he does to respect the space. And then like he came out and like, I was like, is he trying to fuck with me the way I'm trying to fuck with him? So I was like, don't even think nothing of it. We'll see when we step out into the race. I told Lance, I'm gonna cut this angle, see if he switches or whatever. And then when I go and he kind of like does this weird, I said, oh shit, he's not like respecting the space. I said, all right, cool. And And that was it. I was like, he's not respecting the space. That's it. I'm not thinking about it. Now I'm thinking, okay, let me get my first land. Like, I just got to get that first touch to get like the little nerves out the way as far as like, you know, you feel somebody's power, this, and like, I didn't go, boom, he throws the body kick. I'm like, all right, cool. I felt the kick. I'm looking at his shoulders, moving. And I don't like to be moving so much without like landing, because then I'm like, it looks like I'm running. I'm not running. I'm trying to like download information. And I'm like, okay, so he is trying to like work that outside angle. He's trying to trap me. And then he throws something, then I throw something. Okay, then he throws something again, and I go, and then I throw something again. Okay, so here it goes. And then as soon as he like pressures me, and I kind of do a weird thing where I backed up too much, and my shoulders hit the cage. I'm like, I don't like this posture. Because if he wants to, he could just close the distance. I can't go back. So that's when I just throw a cross like with some steam on it. I'm like, hey, you come in, you gonna run into this cross. I take my head far offline, like boom. It wasn't a lot of power, but it was a drastic movement, so he had to respect it. When they did that and I moved out, I just switched my stance the other way. And I was like, this will stop him from just pressuring, because now there's no more outside space. We're on a new angle. And then I threw a jab, because that's how you measure distance. And when I threw it, it landed. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I'm not going to give you the space because I landed. Then I faked the jab. I hit the hook. And when I hit the hook, I see him, like, I touched him perfectly on the chin, and he just like stumbled on the step. I'm like, I don't know if he's like hurt, but that caught him. And then when he tries to get the outside angle, I switch again. So now my power hand is down the pipe. And I said, hey, I'm going forward. And then that's how it happened. And that was the thought process of like, think something, do it. Do this, think something. But then afterwards, we were able to kind of like tell all the scenarios on how you kind of expand on, we call it if-then scenarios. If they do this, then they do this. If they do this, then they do this. But I don't want to be the one on the then all the time. I want to be the one making them be on then. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going first. So then he has to do that. And that's kind of the process. And when we had the third fight and I took Valadia down, Frank Mir is literally saying every if-then scenario. Like, he's commentating live. I can't hear him in the cage, but he's commentating what my corner is telling me and what I'm doing. I get on top. Wow. I was about to go to mount, and I went to top mount, and I locked the legs in a triangle, hips down. And he's like, oh, man, he's going to do this. He's going to do this. And then I'm like, all right. He's like, oh, yeah, he's probably going to push down the half guard, go to 3/4 mount. I go to 3/4 mount. And he's like, okay, he's going to probably turn that 3/4 mount to full mount. They know I like arm bars because they got 4 arm bar finishes. So you hear Brian Lacey, the other commentator, says, oh, it looks like Moon's setting up the arm bar. I never was setting up the arm bar. I was trying to get his elbows high so I can sit on his chest so his hips wouldn't be a factor. And plus the fence was in my way to get the arm bar. And the first thing Frank Mir says is, I don't think he's going to go for the arm bar because that fence is in the way.
Oh, my God.
He's like, the fence is in the way. And he's like, now Moon is in such a high mount that the UPA is not going to work. Like, the bridge is not going to work no more. He's going to have to either give up his back or get to his side. And then what does he do? He gives up the back, and I sink back down on the hips. And Frank Mir is just like literally calling it for like every little thing I'm doing. And then so like when I went back and watched the fight, I was just kind of like just laughing, because afterwards he was like, yeah, man, when we were striking, he was like, yeah, Amun's the more athletic, more twitchy guy. And this guy's like very calm, relaxed, trying to sucker him in. And then as soon as the fight interview's happening live, he's like, what was going on? I was like, man, I could feel like he was like a cobra, like he was trying to charm me into like fighting. And then I kind of fell into that and he caught me. So it was like, to hear it and then to hear the fighter thought process to line up exactly kind of gives people an idea of like what's going on in the fight, why the fighter's not pulling the trigger or why he is pulling the trigger. So I think having somebody like Frank Mir on the other side is like super valuable.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I couldn't think of a better commentator they could have brought on board. So I know you've spoken a little bit about Rampage in the past, and yeah, he's very busy with the Jaxxxon podcast, all that kind of stuff. Is he still part of the UFL at the moment?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I don't know personally. I know that's what they're doing, but doing the UFL.
Sorry, you got to tell me about that as well.
Oh yeah, Yeah, I'll tell you about that. As far as I know, he's still part of it. Him and Frank Mir and Harrison Rogers. A lot of stuff with the F3. A lot of stuff with the F3 has been like taken off with the energy drinks, and you always see Rampage in the F3 funny commercial skits and like wearing his F3 gear, like when he's doing his training. I think he's got a boxing match coming up with Shannonn Briggs.
Yes.
We Saudi Arabia,
as well, and he replied back. Yeah,
that's.
But Shannon just like, let's go, champ. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Dude, I can't wait to see that. That's gonna be. I'm excited about that as well. So he has all those things going on between the Jaxxxon podcast, and then they have the jewelry, and like I'm excited to see.
Yeah, is so good. Like I saw the Tony Ferguson interview. I thought that was brilliant. That was such a brilliant interview.
I've watched it. I haven't seen that one. I've watched a couple other ones, but they're just so good, bro. They're so good.
They've been podcasts for a while. I mean, I know Rampage is fairly new to just being a podcast. He's been in the media space for forever. So
yeah,
it can be quite good. But the other guy, I think it's Gio. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
he's flipping good, man. He's such a good interviewer. Has been
really good.
Time. I'm not sure if you know.
I'm not sure because I didn't fall onto it until I started fighting for the UFL, and then like I went back and like added all the like other people who are a part of the promotion and stuff like that. And then I was like, I heard a clip, and then he had it was Rampage Jackson and Tyron Woodley, and then it was Rampage Jackson and Chandler Jones, and it was Rampage Jackson, TJ Dillashaw, Rampage Jackson, Marty. I'm just like, listen, I'm like, bro,
legends.
It was just like, they say a murderer, just like lining them up. But it's like, I just really enjoyed the podcast. I was just listening to it as a fan, not just as a fighter, but like to be on the fight side and hear the stories from other fighters is also like really, really important. I think they are telling other fighters things that we're so like headstrong. It's like, oh, we're gonna fight, we got to do all this stuff, and it's all this stuff going on the back end in your personal life, mental health and physical health, and injuries, nutrition, and fighting, and promotion, and this, that, and no one sees that stuff, but that's all the stuff the fighter has to deal with. So when you see guys like Mighty Mouse and TJ Dillashaw and all these guys go on and like talk about the other end, it makes you as a fighter feel like, oh, I'm going through stuff, but they're all going through this stuff too. So it's kind of like
man, like some of the money that they've got in the early days is ridiculous. Like you think, and again, I'm not trying to show on any organization in general. But when you start off and they're trying to pay the new up and comers, I feel like the base could be so much better than it is.
I feel like two ways about that. Like I honestly believe like it should not be a handout.
It should be a handout. No, of course not. Maybe it should be.
I do think the fighter pay should definitely be more, especially given the consequences. And that was like the biggest reason why I signed with the UFL was the fact that they were giving very good purses, for where we're at our stage in our career. They are providing, if you sign for the tournament where you have a multi-fight deal with them, then you are a part of their insurance package. You can get stocks in the company. Yes. So it was like there's a lot of benefits. And I was like, man, this is something that I felt like I would be a part of, something that was greater than just me, but like a promotion that's looking to actually change how the fighters are treated. And they have a nice slogan. It's like I don't remember word for word, but I got to get it. Frank Mir and Harrison was saying the word, but it was like this promotion isn't built on the back of fighters. This promotion is built by the fighters for the fighters, or something like that. That's fine. It was something along the lines of that, and I was like, man, it's like when you feel ownership in something, then you want to do better by it. Like you can come in and you feel like you own part of the house. So if you own part of the house, you're going to take care of it better. And you hear them talk about it on all the things. It's like, hey, man, when they provide insurance and telling us when we're going to fight and giving us this and giving us opportunities. Like I won the F3 sponsorship because everybody had an opportunity to win it. If you finish, that first round finish, if it was via knockout, TKO, whatever the case may be, you had an opportunity to win the sponsorship. And I think a couple fighters won that sponsorship, and I went in not even like letting that be like a thought process. I wanted to go in and do my job, and if I did my job to the best of my ability, then these other opportunities would open up, and that's exactly what happened. I had the opportunity for F3. They also helped with proceeds for me to go out to train in Thailand. They help with proceeds to help my training throughout training camp.
They're paying for
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, these are opportunities that I'm like, hey, like that fighters are always looking for. It's like, but you got to do the work, and the opportunity was there, but you got to go and do your job first. Well, I tell people, like, everybody wants to go the extra mile, but you got to go the mile first. Okay. So it's like, if you start focusing energy on the second mile, then you're not giving all your energy to that first mile. So my first thing was to go out there and perform to the best of my ability and complete the task at hand. And if I did so to the best of my ability, it wouldn't be very long. And that's how it was. The second fight was to do the same thing. I did to the best of my ability, given the circumstances. I would have liked that flying knee so bad. Oh my God.
This close.
When I say centimeters, I just got back from Thailand, and I had picked up something in the fight in Valdia's last fight, and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And it was like, I think that could work. And I was like, I'm a land this flying knee. And for four long months, I'm practicing this knee in training. And I tell you, it's more important to know how to throw something with control than it is to just land it. Because, like, I'm trying to land a bomb and I'm throwing everything in it 100 times. Like, you either have no training partners because people are waking up, or you're going to put yourself in a compromised position to get hurt, get knocked out, or you're waking up. So I'm like practicing this shit on the pads. I'm practicing this shit on teammates. I'm trying to practice this shit on I'm like, man, I got to get my entry for this, my entry for the entry for it. I finally figure out my timing, my entry, and I finally figure out the reaction I want from my opponent before I throw it. And then I start sharpening it up. I basically was practicing this thing for like 4 months. And then I record a lot of my training sessions. So I could go back and look at certain things. I'm like, oh, I didn't like this. I like this. My stance got a little high, whatever. It's like, you got to break down. You could train, but like, it becomes so repetitive that the days just blend into each other. People are like, oh man, like, what'd you do Tuesday? I'm like, well, Tuesday was wrestling. We did this. I'm like, I got to record it. Cause I'm like, you train 6 days a week or 5 days a week minimum. And then most of those days you're training 2 a days. And then, so you're like, when you drill something, you want to see how it looks live. So, like how you got there, how to tighten it up, what mistakes you made, so you know what to fix. And so I started recording a bunch of my training sessions. And I finally was like, oh, this is the reaction that I can get to land a flying knee. And then I was like, well, how do I get people to do this reaction like different ways? Like, I want this reaction so I can land a flying knee. Now, instead of me just giving you, call it a feint to see if you would drop your level, I'm like, cool, what if I drop a cross down to the body? Or if I just change my level? Or, hey, when I slip and if I do this with my head, will it get that reaction? And then I had like a couple things that I would do to get this reaction. And when I got that reaction, I would throw the flying knee. So I have like 7, 8 different little clips in my phone where I'm looking back at how I was setting it up. I was like, okay, this is how I set it up going backwards. This is how I set it up going forward. This is how I set it up off the cage. This is how I set it up. So to give you my thought process in that 10 seconds, because you hear the clapper.
Yeah.
That first round, what do people do at the end of the clapper? They want to do, what are your top 2 things? Say the round is close. It's a close round.
It's close. Oh, you just you go for a takedown.
Number one.
Try for the round.
Secure the round with a takedown. It's the last. I'm glad you said that. It's the number one thing that people do.
Number one. That's what I would do that. Like, if I'm gonna,
Perfect. Number 2, if you're a striker,
you throw as many shots at the end as possible.
So as many, but not just combination, but like particularly power shots, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So in order to throw a power shot with your hands, you got to plant your feet. Right? Remember Max Holloway?
Yeah.
Ricardo Lamas? Hey, right here, let's go. Boom, 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 right? So I hear the clapper. I already know that, like, hey, I'm gonna throw this flying knee. I don't know when I'm gonna throw it. I'm gonna, whenever the opportunity presents itself, and I'm like, oh, this is it. So I hear the clapper. He throws a head kick. I move back and I hit the cage, and I'm like, 10 seconds. he's gonna think one of two things. He wants to plant because now he wants an exchange on this last one. I just came off the cage, so I'm going back in. So now the distance is closing. If you catch somebody coming in as a striker, that's when it's the worst because they did all the work. Their momentum's coming in to the strike. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, overhand's going to come. But if the overhand comes, he's going to dip his head. And I'm like, this is the perfect time. I said, I got to get him to dip his head. And the guy who he fought, Phil Katakapa in the UFL 2 or UFL 1, whatever, took him down a bunch. So I know he's probably thinking, I'm going to go for a takedown to secure the round because the first round was up in the air. So I do, and if you watch it at full speed, it doesn't look like much, but you have to be in there and fighting, and you would have to have experience with what that first step into a takedown looks like. And I back out, I hit, and I'm standing a little taller, and my weight, you just see me go like this, just the tap. And so he goes like, I'm thinking, okay, overhand goes, and then he's like, oh, if the overhand's not coming, I got to stop the takedown. He goes like this.
I did see that.
But the hands come down, I'm already going up. It's in my head. All I know is I threw the knee, and when I get to the top of the knee, I see his back. So I know I'm up there. I'm just like, and I see his back, and I'm just like, I see his back. Like, where's his head at? And it's like right on the inside of my knee.
And he was literally millimeters, man. I mean, an inch the other way, it would have been lights out. Or at least he would have been compromised.
His head was here. My knee was back here, which means if my knee would have hit, it would have been a walk-off KO. And then this is what I was saying is like not just getting to the technique, but how you recover from the technique. Because I was so high that I kind of looked like a cat because I like landed on him and I tried to hurry and catch my balance right away because I'm like, as soon as I hit the ground, he's gonna try and throw something with some heat to try and secure it. But I was like, all right. As soon as I hit the ground and squared up, it's like, and I was like, all right, and we'll go back. That was kind of like that was my exact thought process in the fight was boom. I'm like, he went for a head kick. I'm like, oh, he's gonna go for an overhand right, or he thinks I'm gonna go for a takedown because he knows it's short time. And once I hit that step, that's where I'm not thinking about throwing a knee anymore. I'm just looking at the reaction. And because for 4 months I've been off this reaction, just throwing the knee, that's what I did. I got the reaction, I just threw the knee, and that's what happened. So like that's like in time, like that. I knew it's only 10 seconds, so I have a little bit more time to like process. Because I'm like, oh, okay, after this is, I don't have to like think about what's next. After this is a break. So I'm like, okay, he's gonna do this. I'm going, and then that was it. And that's kind of like how that happened. And it would have been beautiful to have a walk-off KO. But it wasn't.
It was close, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very likely that it will happen another time because you've got some of the data from before.
Oh yeah, I got more ways to get this flying knee now. I'm still practicing it in training, and like I said, that's why I say control's better than anything. So I'm able to throw it in training without hurting anyone. Yeah. I have like. There are a bunch of videos of me throwing it where I'm landing it like right here while people are going down. I just pull the knee back. I just pull it back. I'm like, if I can touch this person's guard or my knee can just touch, I just pull it back. Once I'm in the air, I'll have enough control to just pull the knee back. So I'm like, there's different ones. It could be a switch knee, jump knee, like a Masvidal style, like piercing knee. So there are a bunch of different ways to throw it, depending on where they're at, where I'm at. But I've got enough control over it. But in the fight, I'm like full send. Like,
do you ever find it hard to kind of switch off from fighting completely? Because obviously you train fighting, you want to kind of compete regularly this year as well. Is it a little bit difficult to switch off at that?
That's the goal. That's the goal every year. And to be honest, that's one of the hardest things that I have is to like cut off the fighting, like the fight brain. And I love martial arts. Mm-hmm. I tell people I do not like training camps. There's nothing about a training camp the only thing that I like from training camp is the results that I get. I'm more disciplined about everything, the food, my company, my sleep, my eating, my recovery. You gotta be, right?
But it's like a prison, isn't it? A little bit. I mean, I'm
little bit.
assuming training camp is a bit like prison. You basically go home, you sleep, you eat, and then you train, and that's it.
Oh yeah. As far as like that, yeah, it's regimented. It's like, hey, 4 meals a day, every 4 hours, and training twice a day. And if it's not 2 training sessions, it's 1 recovery session, then a training session. You get up, you do your ice bath, and you do this, you do film study. And it's like, I tell people, the week is what the week is, and it's that repeating for 8 weeks, 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, sometimes it's hard to cut off the fighter brain, because in the fight you want to win, and part of training is skill development. And I tell people in training camps, you're not developing a lot of skills, you're sharpening your tools that you already have going into war. If you are going into war back in the old days and you had a spear and a sword and your bow and arrow and a hatchet and a knife and a club, and these are a lot of tools.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, this battle is going to be fought on a mountain. You don't need this and this and this. You need your hammer, your hatchet, your this. So this is what we're going to sharpen going into this. I can't carry all my I can carry everything, but I'm not going to be able to use everything. All right. So it's like, I'm not developing a lot of new tools in a training camp. I'm finding ways to use those tools to sharpen those things going into this opponent. If this opponent is a very aggressive person, I want to work on my evasiveness. I want to work on my shield, because I have to be able to block, and I have to work on my counter. So maybe a shield and a spear so I can block and attack, or like slip and rip, or like, block and shoot. Like, I get to work on that particular skill set. So it's action or reactionary in the fight. But we have all these skills as a mixed martial artist, and it's our job to figure out. That's why having a good team is good. I hear so many coaches like, yeah, man, you're going to go in there, you're going to beat this guy. That's different. Like, that's like calling on a deeper part of you in struggle. Like, when people say stuff like that, like my head coach knows what to say. If he's losing me during the fight, I'm down. He knows what to say. I gave him clearance to say it.
What did he say?
I can't. That's
you can't say it. Okay.
Yeah. That's personal. So
fair enough.
It's something that's like down in there since I was a very young boy. That's like, it's the chaos switch. So if you saw a very disciplined Moon in there, if you ever see me in a fight and it's a 3-round fight, and after 2 rounds it's not going my way, we know it because we're not oblivious, or it's a 5-round fight and that last round is it's like, he knows what to say, and it's like,
what the hell does this? Okay, sorry, I can't.
It's
wow.
Hey,
that's a magic word.
Like, chaos. Go be chaotic. We know what the chaos ensues, and we're gonna see who can thrive in the chaos more, you or them. And that's like the risk taking, putting it all on the line. When you see like a Rory McDonald Rory McDonald and they had the war. Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler. And it's like, it's like one of those, like, it's do or die. And right now, risk taking is not what we're not assessing stuff. I always want to finish the fight.
Personally, as a friend, I hope you don't get into a situation where you have to do that, because that is, it takes a couple of years off your life. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I'm not saying that will be the outcome. It will be a different set of circumstances, and a lot of like I think every fighter has that thing that like, go to war. That's what that is. Go to war. There's no guarantee you're coming back. But if you're getting crushed for 2 rounds, 4 rounds, and the only way to finish is not what you've been doing. So if that's not working, that'll take years off your life too. So, hey, you got, and we say it's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes to the rest of your life.
Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
It's like, coach, stop feeling sorry for yourself, son.
Yeah, like everybody has that.
The fire.
We have what's his name? Teddy Atlas said that to
I love that, man. We are firemen.
So, what's crazy is Lathan, my head coach, is a fireman. He's a fireman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We are firemen.
Yeah, so it was just like, that that was the thing. After I took that first loss on Icon, after I took that loss, like Cole Miller said some very personal things to me, and then he just he was like, "Yo, like you're a phoenix. Like you're gonna rise from this, like from the ashes, and you are going to lay waste to anything that's in front of you. And I know you are because I know who you are." And that was my goal, was to, after rebounding after that loss, was to not compete. Like the goal, like obviously you're gonna compete, but I'm trying to go in. I want to dominate. I want to show that all these great bantamweights that we're all in the same pool is I'm in the ocean. Like I'm in here for a snack. That's what I want to show y'all guys. Like I'm here to use you as a stepping stone to where I need to go. And it sounds brutal, but that's my thought process when I'm in there. You see me dropping elbows and pools of blood on the mat. It's like my goal,
I love it,
is to put my elbow to the other side of the mat. And it sounds bad, but guess what? You're
a professional, isn't it? And you're trying to win. It's a competitive sport. What else is there to be said, really?
I'm like, you're trying to make me a highlight reel in front of my family on the internet.
Come on, man.
Like, so like, you know, I look at it as that person's just an empty vessel, and we can deal with the consequences afterwards, but it's my job to night that vessel, or no matter whatever shape, form, or fashion. Now that person looks at me the same way, and then we have a war on our hands, and by some chance it does go to the judges, then it's up to them. But I don't want to leave it to the judges. All my fights I'm trying to finish. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's why those two that went the distance, like, you would have thought we lost. Like that Mike Wilson fight, I won all 3 rounds. Cole, and everybody, we went in the back. We started arguing. You said what?
Oh my God, really? Why? Well, why did
I didn't get the finish. I underperformed.
Wow.
I underperformed. We went in the back and had a Nah, I look at you. I didn't look good to me. I didn't look good to and it wasn't about looking good. It's about performing. Like, why am I gonna get in a slugfest with a guy who's known to be a tough guy? What does that show?
Yeah, that's true.
I dropped him 18 seconds into the fight, and then I got head hungry. I just started head hunting. All technique out the window. It was just slang and bang. I want to bang, bro. I want to bang. I was like, I was a shark, and I smelled blood in the water. I clipped him 18 seconds into the fight. If I would have stuck to what I did to clipping him, it wouldn't have went 3 rounds.
Yeah.
I got head hungry, and I was pursuing so much. And then when I was trying to assess, then he was pursuing, and I was like, well, fuck that. I'm going to throw back. So that's the thing.
Look, you learn from it. You're also going to be kind to yourself sometimes. Not always, but I think this is the problem. I think this is the problem with a lot of extremely competitive and successful people in general. They're not very kind to themselves, because they have this, and you know, again, like that's just the same with a lot of people. Yeah, and it is good to be kind to yourself sometimes. Not always. Kind of myself. You have to be harsh to yourself sometimes as well.
Yeah, but the thing about it, the fight world doesn't give a fuck.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
And in that Mike Wilson fight, I gave up my head, my neck, and multiple times. And I also ran into a knee that wasn't very effective, but I ran into it because I was being overly aggressive. Well, let me rephrase that. I was being reckless. Reckless is being overly aggressive. I wasn't being aggressive with intent. My intent was to get the takedown at all costs, but not at the cost of eating a knee. You know? And like, we used that, and it was a learning experience. But Cole Miller has close to 50 professional fights. 20 of them are for the world's biggest stage, the UFC. And when we looked at that, he's more concerned about my physical health as a fighter, not because I didn't look good. He's like, if I would have fought the dude from Russia, from Alexei Fedosiev, he would have hit me, I'd have been fucking I'd be asleep.
Yeah, fair.
If I would have ran into a knee trying to take him down, I'd have been asleep. So it's like, hey, maybe let's not go forward at the cost of anything just so you can get this takedown. And then you took him down, you didn't get the ground and pound finish, and you didn't get the submission finish. It's like, I had many opportunities to finish a fight in each round, and I didn't. So we were upset the fact that all the stuff we had been training for 18 months, because that was after my first fight after COVID. And I didn't have no fights. Everybody kept pulling out. Promotions kept falling through. And I was so excited to just get back in the cage that I wanted to fight. And that's what I did. I fought. I did not show a lot of discipline in that fight. And I said it going into the fight. I was like, man, I know literally they bought us out like on the undercard to come do one final face-off before we went in the back. And they was like, what are y'all thoughts prior to? I was like, well, I know he's good at drawing people into a fight, and I got to be disciplined, and because I know he's going to try and draw me into the fight, and I know I'm willing to go there. And I said it. I didn't remain disciplined. So it was about doing your job to the best of your ability, and I lost focus because I smelled blood in the water 18 seconds in, and now it went 15 minutes. So it's like 4 minutes.
I mean, in terms of the future for sure, but I think the main thing is not to have an emotional response about it and just get better, isn't it? Just be like, fuck it. Next.
Oh yeah, but right afterwards we had to get it out.
Oh yeah, you have to get emotional.
Oh, we had to get it out. One of the ladies that worked with the promotional staff came back there with my check. She came in a room and you would have thought we lost. She's like, Moon, your check's right here. I was like, thank you. And I was like, went back and changed. I was just like, but like, this is when people care about you. This is why I said having the right team is important, because he's more concerned, not just, oh, okay, you didn't show that you were better. It's like, yo, like, you really put yourself in compromising positions when we trained all for this fight, and we knew he was like this in these areas, and you put yourself in those. You fought his fight, which is why it went 3 rounds versus fighting your fight.
Yeah, it makes sense in terms of health as well, and just safety for yourself. It makes the most amount of sense. I did have a few other questions, but I know.
Oh, let's get to it. I know.
No, I was gonna say. Yeah, I just didn't. I didn't know if you were just in the mood to talk about anything other than fighting, because I know you're just on absolute kill mode, and I know when you fighters are in kill mode, you're like, I don't want to hear about that shit. But I will start with this. I'll ask you an interesting question. I'm going to try and make this a trademark question as well. What would you like to know before you die? And it could be anything at all. It could be literally anything. But what is the one thing that you feel like you need to know before you die?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything that I need to know, but there are things that I want to know.
Okay.
And I say that because I do study a lot of philosophy, and I can't say I need to know what happens after death, because like, can't nobody tell me that, right? You're gonna die, right? I would like to know what happens after death. That would be a big one, to know about the other side, regardless of what it is. I don't know whatever religious text.
Let me rephrase that. Let me phrase it. There's something that is that's attainable, because no one's no one's. Then I could just be like,